Hi guys, welcome to Suburban Cauldron. I'm Amethyst, and today we're actually going to work a little bit of a spell, and we are looking at our gardens, our household gardens, as we are getting ready for the spring and summer to come through, and we're excited about getting a bountiful harvest. So we're going to work a little spell to really put those energies in play and be ready for that coming season. What we're doing as far as the kitchen goes, because we are kitchen witches after all, is we are going to build and make a vegetable heavy dish, but we're also going to add a little bit of meat and protein to it. We'll talk about where and how here in a little while. So what we're doing today is we're working on a garden blessing ratatouille. Don't forget, if you are enjoying the show and you're enjoying the channel, like and subscribe down below and share the video with your friends as you can, because we love new friends over here at Suburban Cauldron. So bring them on by. We're going to have a lot of fun. So what is ratatouille? Ratatouille is traditionally a French dish, and it's very veggie heavy. And a lot of times it's even seen as a vegetarian dish, but there are options to add protein and meat to it. That's something that we're going to do. We'll get into that when we talk about our ingredients. But as far as the dish itself has a tomato base in it, and then we add the vegetables on top, and then we bake it to where we get the vegetables roasted and nice and tasty, and then we'll add a few extra things on the side. I always like to serve, and I like to have my ratatouille with a side of like a nice crusty bread. So you'll notice in our ingredients picture that we also have a tasty sourdough bread that we're going to serve alongside this. And then you also will garnish this with a little bit of ricotta cheese, which is really tasty. It creates kind of a creamy flavor to it, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But the magic that we're working, we're actually going to put together a garden blessing. So when we get to our supplies, you're going to need some things for an altar. So this does not need to be a big altar. We're not talking about something that is going to be permanent in your household. It's something that is small and can be mobile, because when we're done with everything, we're actually going to take it out or to our garden, wherever that is, and kind of break it down to be able to create a full area of magic in our garden itself. So to get started, the things that you're going to need are those things for your altar. So what I've got is just something super simple, and you'll see it in the picture, but I actually found this cute flowery tea set that I have just up in my craft room area. And what I've got on here, the tray is going to, or the saucer is going to make it really easy to move around. And then the cup actually serves as a bit of an offering bowl. So I can put things in it or around it to help to bless whatever I want to put in there. And what I've got in there is a little bit of the garden soil that I'm going to eventually take outside to my garden and utilize once it's been blessed and we've moved through our full ritual and our full bit of magic. So I've got the offering bowl, some garden soil. I've also got some seed packets that I've already purchased, and as I'm getting ready to plan my garden, I've already got some basic ideas, mostly just because I kind of follow a similar formula every year when I create my garden, but I definitely can change this up as I need to. But it's nice to have the seeds in here, because we're gonna imagine waking them up and really getting them ready to go. And then of course I've got things on my tiny little altar. It's teeny tiny, and for me, I'm just going to go with some basic stones that represent each of the 4 elements or the 5 elements. Pick whatever works for you. If you prefer flowers, or you prefer flowers and feathers or different candle colors, however you want to do this, do whatever works for you. Like I said, this is, when you're working with magic, it's super personal, so it's what works for you, but this is also going to be kind of a mobile altar, because like I said, we're going to take it out to the garden later. So I've got a couple of different stones on here. The stones that I've got a jasper to represent earth. I've pulled a bloodstone to represent fire. I've got an aventurine on there to be my water, and then I've got a piece of citrine for air, and then I've got a rainbow ribbon that I've actually kind of folded into a little bit of a star that's sitting right under the teacup, just to be that spirit piece that binds everything together. And then again, inside my teacup and my offering bowl is a little bit of the soil, and then I've got the seeds that I want to bless on the back of that. So we're going to use that as our altar, and then the rest of this is all part of our baking and our cooking. So supplies you're going to need for cooking: you are going to need an oven safe pan, very similar to the last video we did. If you don't have an oven safe pan and you want to do that with or if you want to use a separate pan and then also have a separate baking dish, that's where I'm going to go with this. So I've got a small baking dish that we're going to transfer things over to before we throw it in the oven. You're also going to want a piece of parchment paper, and you'll notice from the picture that my parchment paper has writing all over it. This is my garden plan, so I've already gone ahead and written that out, and we'll talk about why that's on there later. But the big thing with this is you want to write on your parchment with pencil. Don't use pen or marker or Sharpie or even like a crayon, thinking that that's going to show up on the parchment really well. It will, but it will also seep through and potentially get to your food. So you don't want to do that because we are going to put the parchment paper on top of our food. So just use the pencil. It just makes it a little bit safer. They do have food safe inks and pens that I think you can get at like craft stores or some of the baking sections if you look really hard, but the pencil just makes it super easy, so you want to pick that out. Aside from all of that, when it comes to the ratatouille itself, you'll want a little bit of olive oil to get started with cooking, but then we're going to do a whole slew of veggies. So we start off with a small yellow onion that we're going to chop, and then we're going to do a red bell pepper, that we're also going to chop into smaller pieces, and then you're going to need about 2 tablespoons of garlic to go in with those. And then you'll get a can of crushed tomatoes. And whether you go with a can of crushed tomatoes, you can also substitute this out for a jar of pasta sauce, something that's veggie based, like a tomato basil or a bolognese or something like that works really well with this. Those will be kind of pre-seasoned, so they'll have a really good flavor to it. But if you're going with just your crushed tomatoes, then you're also going to want some fresh basil and some thyme to go in with all of that, just to start the base. Then you're going to do even more veggies, but these we're going to slice. So what you're going to want is a couple of zucchinis, and you can see my zucchinis are fairly small, so they're not great big around, which means I need a couple of them. Same thing with my yellow squash. I've grabbed a couple of those, and then I've actually pulled 3 or 4. I think I got 3. I think I technically bought 4. I bought 4 Roma tomatoes. I'm probably only going to need maybe 2 to 3, so I've set one of them aside just to see if I need it later. But really what we're doing is we're slicing enough to fill whatever dish we're going to bake with surface-wise. So really kind of pay attention to how many servings you need to make. I'm only cooking 3 to 4 servings because I'm just cooking for myself and my partner, and maybe an extra to take for lunch the next day. So I don't need a ton of these veggies. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. And then the last veggie that I want to grab is an eggplant. A lot of your grocery store eggplants are pretty big and round, so you're really only going to need one because they're going to be quite a bit bigger in circumference than your zucchini or your yellow squash. So we're going to split those in half. We're going to make half moons out of those slices instead of just the full circles. All of these you want to slice down to about 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch in size. So you want them kind of similar to the onions last time, not real thick, not real thin. If they get too thick, keep in mind that each of these veggies is kind of a wet veggie. As they bake, they're going to kind of juice out a lot. So the thicker the pieces, the more liquid you get with these. The thinner they are, the more likely they are to roast a little bit better as we move forward. So just kind of keep that in mind. I've just used my regular knife to cut these up. A lot of people I know have a super handy dandy fancy kitchen tool called a mandolin. It's basically a flat plane with a blade on it that you can just slide your vegetables across. The only reason I bring up the mandolin at this point is they are a really great kitchen tool. They're going to make all of this slicing really easy. Please, dear gods, use the guard that comes with your mandolin. Do not just use your hand. I know way too many people who have been severely injured by their mandolin because we get complacent and we just get fast with slicing, and before you know it, something has happened to your hand that you don't want to happen to your hand. So please be safe in your kitchen. Use the guard that comes with your mandolin. That's my only disclaimer on this one, as far as be careful, okay? We're going to get all of these put together, and then for us, we're also going to add in some protein for ours. So we've got a lot of different options for protein. I have stacked on here some pepperoni slices that we're going to add in, and then some deli prosciutto that I found at the grocery store. This works well. You can also do some salami. That's usually in like the deli area with kind of the select meats. You can get some really good salamis out there. You can also do like Italian sausage. You can either buy it as just like the stuff that you can crumble, and you'll cook it up and crumble that up, and then you'll add that to your tomato base like you would a pasta sauce. Or you can get an actual like a link of Italian sausage and just slice those. You don't want those quite as thin as the rest of your veggies because they'll just start to denature and fall apart, but you do want them, you can put them in little slices. You'll still cook those in the skillet and then add them in with your slices later on. You can try even some of the kielbasa or the smoked sausage that comes in that cool horseshoe shape in the store. You can slice that up. You can do hot links. Just play around with whatever meats you want to play around with. I tend to lean in the direction of your Italian or your European meats, but whatever works for you, however you want to play with this. Probably wouldn't go with bologna, just that one feels like it's not going to go well with this, but you know, play around with your meats as you want to. You can even throw some chicken in here if you want. So as you can tell, make this your own, okay? That being said, you guys, you'll notice that I did not put a direct link to this recipe in the description, and that's really because Ratatouille has been around for a really long time. There are lots of options when it comes to recipes, and they're all super, super similar. So we just did kind of a hodgepodge and cherry picking of little bits and pieces of recipes and put them all together. So really just make this your own. Ratatouille is one of those dishes that you can kind of play with and turn into your own thing. Okay, so where are we going with this, right? So we're going to start with doing our magical work first, and then we're going to move forward into cooking, just because it's going to make it a little bit easier. So for what we're working on is we're going to start, I'm going to move everything around here a little bit. We're going to start with our altar, our small altar here, and I'm going to move all my veggies and stuff out of the way. There we go. So we're going to start with our small altar, and again, I have stones that represent each of my different elements. So I'm going to move these around on my altar just so that I've got somebody in each of their corners where they belong. And then I put my seed packets just kind of wherever it needs to go. These say they want to be on the sides. That's fine. That's how that works. Okay, so you want earth, air, fire, water, spirit. When I do magic, you guys, I don't create, when I do spells, I should say, I don't create a full circle, okay? I don't cast a full circle. I don't call all of the quarters in. I kind of save that for the event type rituals that I'm doing. So the full moons, the new moons, and any of the sabbats that come across, those are where I'll probably call circle and call quarters. But when I'm just working a spell, I'm just going to stick with the basics and just call, like, I kind of invoke and bring in Lord and Lady, but I'm fairly general with it. You'll hear me actually use deity names later on when we actually charge our dish before we put it in the oven. But for this part, I'm fairly general and very small, just because with the spell work, that energy comes from you yourself, with the assistance of Lord and Lady as they come in, okay? And remembering that a huge part of magic is energy that comes from us that we push out into the world. So that's what we're working with here. So for this, I've got my soil in here. I've got my seeds in here. The little jar that I've got sitting here, this is actually full moon water that I've made at the last full moon that just went by. So I'm going to actually add just a little bit of that to my soil, just so that it's really getting charged, and because I'm not going to be able to use my soil right away. We'll talk about that towards the end of the video. But just want to add just the slightest bit, just so it holds on to any of the blessings that I put to it at the end of my work. Okay, so just add a little bit of full moon water in there. Got all my seeds together, and then we're just going to really put some energy in here and bless our soil. So the way we're going to do that is you're going to ground and center, and wherever your center is, for me, it's right here at my solar plexus, and then I just create kind of an aura of energy around myself. So it just kind of, it's almost like wearing a big, like a hula hoop, right? It just kind of comes out for myself, and it's just a circular plane that kind of comes around. If you want to imagine yourself in Glenda's bubble, that works really well. So it's kind of a nice one. So it's just a small little area of energy around yourself that you're creating, and that's your sacred space and your protected space, and that's your energy so that you can do your work. All right. And I will generally just say something along the lines of, Lord and Lady, thank you every day for your blessings and being with me all the time. I ask that you join me and help me work some magic and work the spell that I'm looking at to bless my garden for a bountiful harvest. Something along those lines. This comes from your heart. You'll notice that some of the things I have written down, just because there's a lot of words to them and I want to try to remember the order that I have, but a lot of times this just comes straight out of me, and I don't even, like, I read the words, but they're jumbled up because this is still just me freely talking, okay? And that's my big thing, is I really feel like the gods work with us, and they don't sit above us, so they understand we're human and we're all on the same plane. We're kind of peers at this point. So just have a conversation with them, call them in, see how that goes. When you call in Lord and Lady, for me, a lot of that stuff is done with my eyes closed, and I actually feel hands on my shoulder, and that's how I know someone's touched me here, and they've made themselves present with me, and they're here. I also feel like I get hot sometimes. So you'll see my cheeks get red, and a lot of times that's because I've got that energy flow going, because I warmed up, because I'm working that magic. So once you find your center, you're going to place your hands over the top of your soil, and you're going to feel your personal power come across and down your hands. Your arms will get warm, your hands will warm up. Some of this, mine is just a gentle heat. Some people have sparkly shocks because their personal energy is a little more zappy and a little more electric. It really is what works for you. So you put your hands over your soil, you feel that energy, you see the light coming out of you, out of your hands into your soil, and you just, over your soil, you're just going to speak to it, and you're just going to say something simple like, I bless my soil to be used in my household garden. May it be a bountiful harvest and provide for my family and my community throughout the spring and summer. And then you always add in, as it harm none, so mote it be. And when I say so mote it be, I do kind of put a little push to it, right? Because it's not necessarily a command in the big capital letters. It's really just kind of that end note, the period on the sentence, so mote it be. And we push that energy into the soil, and now it's ready and it's blessed. You can do the same thing over your seeds. I am blessing my seeds and awakening them for a coming harvest, so that we can be provided for and have a healthy and bountiful harvest through the spring and summer. So mote it be, right? And we just push that into the seeds, and now we're all ready to go. And ultimately, I'm still going to keep this close to what I'm doing. So I want it to be small, because my clumsy butt is going to knock the dirt into the ratatouille if I don't make this small and something that I can put out of the way, okay? So I'm actually going to move it over next to my stove, but I'm going to set it on top of my toaster oven that lives next to my stove, so it's close to me, but up and out of the way, okay? All right, guys, so this is going to be the first part of our ratatouille. We're going to build the base. If you are, sorry, I got eyeball itch. If you are doing the crumbled Italian sausage, this is a good time to make your sausage and get that ready to go, because we're going to add that to the tomato base in a little bit. But we're going to start this off with a little bit of warm oil and our onions. We're just going to throw these guys in here. And a little bit of garlic. All of our tasty garlic is going to go in here as well. Get this going. And we're just going to leave these in here maybe 2 or 3 minutes to let them get nice and fragrant. And the onions are going to be just on the side of translucent. So we're just going to let these kind of do their thing for a sec. Just stir them around a little. And then we're going to add in our red bell pepper that we have chopped up. I went ahead and pre-chopped all of these. Sorry, the plastic doesn't want to work with me. Pre-chop these up so that they're ready to go in. When we're talking about the bell peppers, I really do want to do either a red. You could go yellow or orange. I like the red because, remember, when we're working with magic, colors and like all of the correspondences kind of meld in all together. So I want the red because it does give us that fiery feeling to things. So we're gonna go with that. And we're just gonna let those add in and just get until they're just a little bit on the soft side. And once that gets kind of soft, we're gonna add in our tomatoes, our basil, and our thyme are gonna go in there as well. We'll talk more about that red pepper in just a little bit once we get to adding that in. Fine, I'm gonna move those guys out of the way. And these are just getting there. Peppers don't take a super long time to get soft. And then I'm gonna add in my crushed tomatoes. I went with a 14-ounce can again because I'm doing a smaller amount of servings, but you can add more if you want. If you're doing your pasta sauce, this is a good time to add in your crumbled Italian sausage and add in your sauce. So I'm just gonna add this in here. If you look really closely, you'll notice I got the wrong tomatoes, so I had to kind of crush these on my own. And for some reason, they put the label on upside down. So, you know, the things you find in the grocery store. I was looking at the crushed tomatoes, and it wasn't until I was looking at this later on today that I went, those are diced. That's weird. So we're just going to let these kind of go and just warm everything up. We're going to add in our basil. I'm going to put a couple of little bits in here. I wasn't able to find the fresh basil, and I don't have my garden obviously ready to go just yet, so I just pulled one of the little containers of chopped but sealed basil, so that one's going to work really nice. I was able to find some beautiful and fantastic smelling fresh thyme, so that's going to work really well in here as well. So as this is going, we're just going to let this get warm and meld these flavors all together. So we're just going to give it a few minutes. I've got my heat on a little high, so I want it like medium to medium low, just to get all these flavors going together. But also, you guys, this is the second piece of magic that we're going to do. As we're stirring this around, you're really going to use those powers of imagery and remember what we're doing. We're creating a spell and we're creating a meal to go with our garden. So we want to wake up the earth and get everything going. So if you think about the tomato sauce and all these red colors as kind of the blood of the earth, it's very similar to when, you know, you're getting ready to do a workout. They always tell you don't work out cold because then your muscles don't like that. You want all the good nutrients from your blood to go through to all your muscles. So same thing. When we want the earth to provide nutrients for our garden, we want the blood of the earth to be nice and warm and heated up. So we're going to imagine that, you know, this goes in kind of viscous, and then as it heats up, it starts to get a little bit more liquidy, and it really melds all the flavors together, and the earth is waking up and it's creating those energies. So as you stir, you're putting in the energy that you're wanting to go in your garden in order to create a good, bountiful harvest. So this is just about done and ready to go. When this is nice and warm and heated up and my flavors are all melded together, I'm going to pull this off of the heat. If you are continuing on with your one pan that's going to go in the oven all together, we're just going to create everything in that pan. For me, I'm going to transfer it over to my glass baking dish so that then I can layer all my veggies on there, and that's what's going to go in the oven. So this is just about ready. We're going to pause here for a second while I get this off the heat and get myself reset. All right, guys, so we're back over at our countertop. We did move the tomato base into our glass dish. I also turned my oven on to preheat. You want to preheat your oven to about 350, so that'll be ready for us just to pop this right in there when we're all set. The rest of this is building the ratatouille. Ratatouille is typically a dish that is just stacked vegetables kind of laid out. So we're gonna make little stacks of very similar to like they are stacked here, but we're gonna lay them flat. So kind of like poker chips is what the word I'm looking for. Like stack your poker chips up and then kind of lay them flat so they fan out. I'm gonna go from the middle, and then you're just gonna kind of spiral it out if you want to do that, or you want to do rows. That will work as well. It's really just as long as the full bottom of your dish is covered. I have a lot of vegetables here. I'm gonna have a lot left over. The nice part about this is these are all really good snackers, or you can cut these up and build them into a salad, however you wanna go with the extras. It's gonna work really nicely. So remembering with magical work. It all deals with colors and correspondences as we move forward. So we've already got the red pepper in our base. That's going to come up here in a little bit. But now I've got a yellow squash, green zucchini. It is a red tomato, but tomatoes actually correspond with water, so you'll hear me kind of pass that through, and you might catch on that, but tomatoes are red. They are actually a very juicy water corresponding plant. And then we've got eggplant. The eggplant is that fantastic purpley black midnight color that kind of incorporates spirit and brings it all together. So that's where we're going with that. And then we're going to throw in some protein on top of that. I'm doing the pepperoni and the prosciutto slices. Wherever your protein sources are, feel free to add that in. So I'm going to start with the yellow squash. So I'm going to go with yellow squash of air. I bless my garden for a bountiful harvest. With red pepper of fire, I bless my garden for a bountiful harvest. With green zucchini of earth, I bless my garden for a bountiful harvest. With the tomato of water, I bless my garden for a bountiful harvest. And then the last piece, with eggplant, purple eggplant of spirit, I bless my garden for a bountiful harvest. And then you're just going to add on your protein. Again, my little bit of pepperoni, a little bit of prosciutto in here. And then these are just going to layer in, and you're just going to kind of fan them out just slightly, like a bit of poker chip-ishness. And I'm going to start in a corner and kind of spiral out or around. How do I want to do this? Yep, that works. Right like that. And then we're just going to create and keep going around. That feels like a lot of words, right? With yellow squash of air and green zucchini of earth, it's a lot. So from here, you can condense this down all the way down to, with earth, air, fire, water, I bless my garden for a bountiful harvest. You can even just reduce it to, I bless my garden for a bountiful harvest. And you're just going to repeat that with all of your stacking as you go around, okay? So, whoops, he's going to get away. Earth, air, fire, earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. I bless my garden for a bountiful harvest. You're just going to keep going around. This is eventually going to become almost like a chant for your brain. And as you chant this out, because you're just going to kind of get into the mode of creating your ratatouille, as you're doing this, you kind of have that, it's almost a meditative chant-like state. And I really want you to, again, fall back on your magical imagery, okay? So as you're building this, you're going to see in your mind's eye, you're going to see your garden. It's going to be full and lush, and there's going to be vegetables everywhere. Everything is just about ready to harvest. And then you're going to imagine and see yourself or your family harvesting your garden together. And then you're going to see in your inner eye cutting the vegetables and creating a meal for your family. You're going to see your family enjoying that meal, and you'll even go as far as picturing the abundance that's going to come out of this. So for example, I'm going to grow some tomatoes, and I know that I always end up with a lot of tomatoes, and a lot of times to help them ripen, you can put them in windowsills. So I'm going to picture my windowsills full of tomatoes, and then I'm going to see in my inner eye sharing the abundance with my friends and family, with my neighbors. Even picture these people, like if it's somebody at work that you know they live in a single apartment and vegetables are not cheap, so offer that to them. Or picture yourself taking some to a donation center, or share with your friends, family, neighbors, and community, because that's the whole point, that we're asking for abundance, not just for us, but to share outside of us, okay? So as you build this, I'm going to take over just a few minutes to build this, and we'll come back, but really use that inner eye to put that magic in your dish. All right, so we have gone ahead and we've layered everything through, and I've created kind of a real pretty spiral, and you probably saw the still shot that popped through on there. So that's what we're creating with our ratatouille. We've got all of our intentions in here, all of our good feelings, and an abundant harvest headed for us, because that's what we're asking for. Before we put this in the oven, we're going to charge it, but real quick, I want to cover it up. That's where our parchment paper comes into play. So With our parchment paper, I have my garden plan written on my parchment paper, and I'm going to bake that into my dish. But I'm not going to put the writing against my food. Please don't do that. And again, use your pencil, not it's something that's going to seep through your parchment paper. But I'm just going to place this right on top. You'll notice that it's been cut to the shape of my dish so that it can just cover it nicely. And then we're going to pop this in the oven, and that's going to help to keep the heat in and some of the moisture in, and then the vegetables will roast nicely. So I've got my garden plan on there. And then just before I move this into my oven, I am actually going to give it a job, and I'm going to charge it. So once again with my, wow, he really wants to roll. Pardon me while I refix him. With my imagery, I'm really going to ground and center myself. I'm going to feel that energy come through. I would put my hands on either side, or I would hold my dish. If it's the pan that came off of the stove, don't grab the hot dish, okay? If it's still on the stove, don't put your hands on the hot stove element. Just keep cognizant of what is safe, okay? But for here, if you don't really have a good spot, just hold your hands over the top. That works just as well, okay? So we're just going to add to this. We're going to take a deep breath, and we're going to reground and center. We've got our energy coming through our hands, and we're just going to speak to our food, and we're going to say, I charge my dish with the power of Gaia and her green man. May my family be blessed with a full garden and full bellies. May we have enough to share with our community and our families throughout the season. Lord and Lady, I thank you for your blessings. As it harm none, so mote it be. And we push that in there, okay? Really imagine Gaia and her green man. If you want to go with flora and fauna, if you want to go with some other garden or nature entity or deity that works for you, again, this is all very personal, so whatever works for you, but you want them there. They have their hands on your shoulders, or they even have their hands over yours. However it is, put that energy in your dish, okay? I will tell you guys, the years that I have been working with my garden, I've been in 2 different homes now. I had gardens in both places. This year I've struggled a little bit, or this house I've struggled a little bit, just because I went from a large garden space to small garden boxes. So my garden plan has had to change quite a bit, which also means I'm still in that stage where I need to baby all my plants. So part of my garden plan is, when am I getting my seed pods started? When am I going to get them moved outside and strengthening them up so they can go in the ground? When do I plan on actually putting them in the ground? That's part of mine. Yours may be, drawing yourself a map of your garden, and here's how many rows of what vegetable I'm going to put in. That's where your garden plan is coming from. It's not necessarily, hey, I'm going to share this with Sharon in the HR department. It's, here's how I want my garden to grow. Okay, here's how I want to share it with the community, and how I'm going to get it planted. And I will tell you, every single year, without fail, there is not, I am such a nerd, there is not a single bean that has come out of my garden that I have not felt exuberant joy over. Look what I made. I literally come in from outside, dirt under my fingernails, with handfuls of lettuce, and I run over to my partner and go, look, I made this, and they laugh at me every time. And it's really just because I feel childlike joy in the fact that I had a part in creating something that is going to continue to nurture my family, and I just get super excited about it. That is the kind of energy and feeling that you want to put in this dish that's going to bless our garden and bless our harvest and give us that bounty that we are expecting. Okay, so that's really what we're pushing into our food with that, so mote it be. Okay, from here we're going to pop this in the oven. It's going to go in the oven and meld all of its flavors for about 45 minutes. Again, I'm going to mention these are all very juicy vegetables, so it may start to be a little on the wet side, or some people would even call it mushy when it comes out, but you do really want the edges of these vegetables to have that crispy roast on the edge of them as well. So that's why the 30 to 45 minutes. If you don't like the mush of the vegetables, you want them to have a little bit more crunch to them, you can shorten this down. The pepperoni, and unless you're using an uncooked meat, everything has been cooked. So it's ready to come out of the oven early if you need to. Just go with your flavors and go with your textures, whatever works for you. But the big thing is, bless your food, get it going. Okay, so we're gonna pop this in the oven. We'll come back in a few. All right, you guys, we are super excited. This just came out of the oven. It smells amazing. The house smells really great. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull my parchment paper off, and what we've got is a really fantastic roast on these veggies. And when it first came out, it was a little bubbly, so we've let it cool just a squink, just so that we can serve some up and have some. So we're gonna get this plated. With this, you're also gonna add like a dollop of some ricotta cheese, and I do, before I serve myself, I'm gonna add a little bit more basil to it, just the fresh basil over the top, just to really get that super great flavor. So we're just gonna add little sprinkles of basil. Get crazy with it if you want. Basil's a really fun flavor, so it's kind of sharp, but it tastes great, especially with all of these, the tomatoes and things. That's where you get like that the caprese flavor with the tomatoes and the mozzarella and the basil. That's a really fun flavor. So basil's of that sharp flavor that's going to be really good. So I'm going to put some on a plate. We're going to get a little bit of ricotta cheese on this just to get it that creaminess, and I'm going to serve it with my little dollop of bread. And we're going to take a look here. Before I get real excited, because I am real excited to try this, I wanted to talk just briefly about my altar and what I'm doing with this moving forward. So remembering that this was sitting next to us the whole time, from here I'm going to take my altar out to my garden, and those stones that I used, I'm going to place in certain areas of my garden to help to bring the blessing into the soil that's out there. And then when I am actually ready to till my garden and get the soil ready to go, that's where I'm going to add the little bit of garden soil that I've blessed here. I'm going to till that in. So until I'm ready to do that, I'm actually going to put this in a glass jar. You know us witches, we love jars. So I'm going to put this in a glass jar with a nice seal on the top and keep it fresh and ready to go, so that once my garden is ready to go, I can till this in and use it there. But within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to get these seeds started in some pods. So I'm really excited about those, and the fact that these have been used and ready to go. And then the last little piece I just want to throw out there, just kind of it's not even really a disclaimer as much as it's just kind of a extra credit. So I found online some really great work to be done for creating a garden guardian. And I actually was able to find a really great dragon figurine at a craft store or a Target or somewhere, but it came as a kit for kids to paint, and I really enjoy that because I am a home crafter. So I'm going to take my little guardian and paint him up. He's a little dragon. Paint on him some of the symbols that I want, maybe even make my attempts at flowers, but really I want to give him a name, and I want to ask him to guard my garden from insects and pests and predators, and to really help to keep my garden healthy and strong as we go through the harvesting season, as we go through spring and summer. And because it's a dragon, I'm also going to anoint his little third eye, and I'm going to run down his spine and maybe a little bit over his chest area with a little bit of whiskey, just to kind of fire him up a little bit and get him ready. And I'm going to give him a name. That's the most important part. Give him a name, and then I will kind of finish out my work with grounding and centering again, and then asking him to do his job to guard my garden from all of those things. So that's just, like I said, that little extra credit piece. But moving forward, I'm going to get this on a plate, and we're going to dig in here. So just a little schmoo. And I want some ricotta because I love ricotta. Add that on there. All right. Ooh, I'm excited. These veggies are perfectly soft. They're perfectly roasted. Everything looks great. Ricotta in there. It's real hot. It's hot. That's really good. That's really good, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and to share with your friends if you enjoyed our content. I will go ahead and say I hope you have the best garden ever, and I wish you the best blessings for your garden. And you know, merry meet, merry part, and we are going to see you next time. So merry meet again.